implicitly and explicitly to the people you serve. Brands that keep their promise earn trust and awareness, and you have a brand whether you want one or not. And it goes into a lot of what you just said right now. So your brand is everything about you. And that could be the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you spell your name. Brand is not fair. Brand can be prejudiced. But it is how you conduct yourselves with everyone in your life. So it is something that if you haven't thought about it, is your brand that you walk into a room and light it up? Is your brand that you walk into a room and provide great information? Is your brand that you walk into a room and you say, you hear someone and then what you say is, I'm going to play devil's advocate and smash into that person? I always know I'm in trouble when someone starts their sentence with, well, I'm a taxpayer and I think, because it's just going to wind up, right, in an argument, right? Because they obviously think differently. All of those things convey your brand. And if you don't have a brand and you didn't, the best time to start one was 10 years ago or 5 years ago or a week ago, and the next best time is when? Right now, right? So it's how you present yourself in all these areas. Now, know that this is interesting. So a brand as the story that helps people tell themselves a story about you. A brand is a story that helps people tell themselves a story about you. Seth Godin was a Stanford MBA, and he went into publishing. And he went in with a suit and a tie and spreadsheets, and he explained to publishers why they should utilize him and his services. And they responded by saying no, kicking him out. And he realized he needed to change, that he had a great product, but he was not selling it. He was selling himself as something that the publishers didn't want to hear. And he went to he's a very smart guy, right? And he went to very great lengths to understand what the consumer or what his client wanted. And he says he stopped, in this case, right, with publishers, he stopped wearing three-piece suits. He stopped taking in spreadsheets, and he started actually speaking into what it was they wanted. And he became wildly successful, okay? Now, we have a cool business that we're in because we know that our clients generally want to buy or sell a home, right? We have in the realm of real estate. But the piece that can be part of our brand is that we listen. And this is something that out in the world today, a lot of real estate professionals don't do. And it is something that's very special when you do it, right? And we're so busy jamming our fantastic marketing down people's throats that we don't ask them what it is they want or what it is they want to achieve, right? This can be part of your brand, and it will go right into your success. And so a piece of this is, in your mindset, is your mindset that you are forcing it at what you do down people's throats, use that expression, or is it that you are listening for what they need? Okay? So that's just one sort of mindset shift that I'd like to talk about. The mindset, so this sort of mindset makes you commit to the market you're serving rather than be committed to just what it is that you do, okay? So another piece he brought up, and this is something that I think all agents begin or struggle with in there, that they think, how do I get my message out? The mindsets. How do I get my message out to all these people? How do I get it out to all these people? And he brings up technology companies right now and how they're trying to, they're working with no revenue, right? And in this case, this is a great analogy. They're working with no revenue and they're trying to acquire people and they want to create this thing and they're raising more money and more money. And it's ultimately, he says, the day is going to come when they have to provide value to someone who's willing to pay for it. And And so he says, he thinks that it's pretty backwards, this method of thinking. He says, if you have a great idea, what you need to do is share it with your, with your close friends and your sphere of influence. And get them in this, get them to buy these things. Because if you can get them to buy it and trade their money for the value you're providing, then you can do it with other people, and from there, and from there, and from there. And so one of the mindsets we have is like, oh my gosh, I need to spend $1,000 a month on Zillow or Truly and just blast out there, and we forget that where we need to start is by testing out the way that we work and our brand and our mindset on the people that are around us, and create value starting around us. That's not to say you're not thinking big, right? But that you are actually testing your value and working on other people. And by the way, this could mean going and having a coffee, a lunch, or a dinner with your friends or your people in your sphere of influence who are absolutely not looking to buy or sell. Don't care. Can you pitch them like, hey, could you help me with my pitch? Could you give me some feedback on this? Do you know how real estate works? Do you know how I get compensated? Do you know that if you ask most people out there how real estate agents get compensated or how much they get compensated, that they have no idea? I don't know, commission maybe? I don't know how it's paid, is it buy or sell? They have no idea. They have no idea. And they don't understand also that maybe your deals come from referrals. They don't know. Where do you get your leads? I don't know, internet, Facebook, your broker gives them to you, whatever they say. But it's generally they don't understand that they come from your referrals. So it's the mindset that you have to educate people, educate your sphere of influence, and train them to utilize you and to utilize your services. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? And so you can start there. And that's what I love about what I'm talking about today is it's something you can start today, right? You can make a phone call today. This isn't stuff that's out there in the future or that you need to set up to get ready, to hurry up, to get ready to set up. It's something that you can do today. So, having that mindset allows you to be specific about your value proposition. And when you're specific, we call it being a meaningful, specific. Zig Ziglar said you can be either a meaningful, specific, or a wandering generality. A meaningful, specific, or a wandering generality. If you're meaningful, specific, then you know you're selling real estate, you may have an area of specialization, you may have a farm, but you provide this particular value and this particular service. And that value will translate to other folks. If you're selling real estate today and you're selling, widgets tomorrow or donuts tomorrow and coffee the next day, and so if you're scattered all over the place, it's really hard to make an impact on others with your value, right? So there's a huge importance to focus. So, for instance, Nike sells shoes. Does Nike sell potato chips? No. I bet Nike could sell potato chips. But I don't know how long that would last. It's very easy for Nike to make a decision about their commitment, right? Because their mindset is we're great at, let's just say, shoes. Okay? From that commitment of being committed to provide, I'm just going to say excellent shoes, excellent athletic gear, whatever, it's very easy for them to make decisions on how they're going to conduct themselves. And so part of what your job is what value do you want to create and do you want to provide? And it's going to make your decisions moving forward easier because you'll have that, right? You'll have that roadmap. All right. So, Pinky, can I have you come up and sit here for moral support and making me remind you to ask questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, guys. So what I want to do here is everyone, or I should ask, are people familiar with this? There's a triangle, and it's called the 3 L's, right, in our real estate business. Does anyone know what those L's are? The three L's.
hint, it's in the red book.
Leverage, listings, and...
You're on track, you're on track.
Leads.
Someone said it. Yeah.
Leads, right? So this is a foundational model, and this will all make sense here because I talk really fast and go forward. Right, so we're basing everything on foundational models. Why am I basing, that's great, why am I basing everything on, why am I using models? Why am I even talking about using models and systems? This is not an easy answer, but I think you should think about it. Why do we use models? Why does Keller Williams talk about models?
They work.
Models work, yes. What else?
They're direction for people.
Yeah.
They're directions, correct, right? What else? There's more, there's a lot of more.
How to build your business.
How to build your business, absolutely. What else?
You're not recreating the wheel.
Ah, very good, very good. You're not recreating the wheel. Good. All of those things are correct and excellent. We use big systems and big models. By the way, a system, guys, you know what a system is? It's a checklist. A system is a checklist. So don't let that freak you out when I say, do you have a system for something? It's a checklist. That's your system.
It's almost like if I could put it in a different context. So if someone wanted to get on a fitness program, you wouldn't just make it up, right? You would check in with someone who's done it before, where it's worked, and you can repeat it. That's the great thing about a system, is you can use that as really, as Parker's touching on, your foundation. Repeat it, you can measure it, and you can build on that.
Right. And the other thing about these systems and these models that we're going to talk about and use is if you do not use systems and models, you're going to expend a lot of energy like that fly. Okay? Because you're just you're out there. And both, by the way, until Gary Keller came along, it was very, very few agents that were doing things with systems and models, and instead they were just doing things, as they say, come naturally. They weren't purposeful, right? We call it moving from E to P. Entrepreneurial to purposeful. Some people call it easy to painful, right? Because it's not your natural way of doing things. Now, the reason that you can try to conform to models and systems is because when you don't want to do things, having a model and a system makes it easier, right? When you don't want to lead generate or market or build these things, if you just have your list of things that you need to go through, your brain will allow you to do it. All right? So that's super important that we use these. So there's some levels in here, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this piece, but the basis of this pyramid, right, begins with think. By the way, this is Gary Keller's model. It goes think, earn, net, receive. Okay, so this class, starting here at the foundational piece. I thought that was pretty good, and I tied that on in. Okay, so one of the first pieces to start with, and this class is not about it, but I'll give you some examples, is having a big why. Like, why are you doing these things, right? A big why powers you along when things get rocky, like why you're doing something, right? So my big why revolves around freedom. It's a big lock. It's like freedom, right? Like, so I can have freedom in my life to travel and do the things I want to go do, right? Or have for some people it's security, or or it's support for their family. It's a big, lofty sort of thing. So you definitely need to have that. You definitely need to have your big why, because that's what's going to power you when things become challenging, and things will become challenging. Okay, so having the big why about what you do, and the most interesting thing is a lot of people, I'll say, do you have a big why? We'll do a class, and then a few weeks later they'll come back and I don't have my big why. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think my big why is perfect. It's like, well, you probably have a big why, but you really need to put it in front of you, right? So I was coaching with one of the top agents in the office last week, and we created a new game for him, a big why. His big why revolves around his family and the experiences of his family. Like his family having a great, loving life, right? Joyful life. And this person has a lot of money. It's like, well, kind of happy. And so it's like, well, when you're kind of happy and you have money and you're just sort of set, it's like, I like my house, I like my car, my business is going well. Like, what's the big why? And we really had to delve into it, and it came down to the experiences he's providing his children. And I said, great, well, what experience do you want to provide your children? What's an outrageous thing that you want to do? And in this case, we came up with something and he's planning it. But you have to like put that think piece in, and it's something, I can't eat your lunch for you. You need to do this, right? So having that big why to fuel your goals. And that will feed into the models, and it will feed into the habits as well. So I want, and just to give you an idea about this, I want to do one little exercise. Mike Marsola, I'm gonna have you can stand, you can stay right there. I want you to play a little game with me, would you? So Mike, this is a thinking big exercise, right? So I'm gonna say, let's just say you're making real money, right? Making real money. What would you like to do? What would be your goal there?
Well, my goal would be, my big why is to provide a life that I have always expected to have, and to get rid of some of the stuff that I thought that was going to be given to me. Now I have to provide for myself. And my big why is like, I have goals that I want to ascertain. I want to flip houses. I want to become what I know that I can be.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's say you do something. I mean, you have big money right now. You have big money. What do you want to do?
Travel to Italy for about a month.
Okay.
Take some time off.
Right.
Right.
I don't think you understand.
Okay.
You got big. You got money. I mean, you got some big money.
My big why would be, or not why, what would I want to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question. Well, since I don't have any children and I don't have a family, it's kind of hard to think outside and say, okay, what can I do that's not about me, per se? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would just start giving back to those who are less fortunate, or pick a cause.
Got it. I'm talking really big money. I mean, I'm talking really, like, I'm talking huge. No, I'm talking huge money. I'm talking huge money. What would you do?
Warren Buffett.
What's huge, 5 million, 10 million, more?
I'm the top listing agent in the Hollywood Hills. I'm just rolling and go like all in.
Big.
Those guys.
Talking big money. I don't think you understand.
I think I would just want to open up my own office and give back, teach other agents, other people how to become successful. Teach them. I've always wanted to teach, and I still want to teach in a sense. So being able to be at that level, to be able to give back to everyone who wants to get to these levels, and I'm really thinking like, that's my goal, right?
Awesome. What if it were just even a little bigger? I'm talking big money.
I mean, I would some sort of charity.
Okay. What might that look like?
It would have to be my own, like, a cause that I truly believe in,
Okay.
right? I don't know if like cancer or any of that stuff, but I think to kids who are undereducated, some sort of scholarship, I don't know, just doing as much good with the riches that I've been given. But my ultimate goal is to have a family and like to have that experience, because that's what I grew up in.
Awesome.
So that's money beside the point. I want my own children, I want my own family. I don't care about really anything else. Like, money's great. I've gotten to that point.
Great. You see how we went from like, paying off bills to,
Saying I don't care about the money.
to saying I don't care about the money, but then it kind of went to like a place where it was like curing cancer, right? This isn't my exercise, Gary Keller does this. He does it better than I do. But the point is, he talks about thinking on a scale that it took, everyone in here was like, big money, like 5 million, 10, no, what about 500 million? What would you do with 500 million? Right? Like I'm talking thinking really big, really blowing that mindset out, going well beyond, I don't know how to get there, but like what would you do? And that gives a lot of insight, and I'm not asking for responses at the moment, but it gives a lot of insight. The gal that Gary did this with, it went from, opening up an exercise studio to, it wound up helping create world peace. Right? That's big thinking. That's really great. And so I invite you to consider that, right? And so it's not always about, well, I don't know how I'm going to get there, so that's ridiculous to think about it. That's not the mindset we're talking about. We're talking about really opening things up to big models and big goals for yourselves and opening up those possibilities. Does anyone have any questions about that? Does that kind of, anyone like really not blow your mind? I can see there's a lot. I can see people's wheels were turning. Either that or there's something really great going on Twitter. Okay, so big goals, big habits, and actually that plays into the graphics. There's a habit graphic I just want to talk about really quickly, and it looks something like this. And it's, hang on, let me make sure I get this right. This is time, this one's got time. This is production. I don't know if you've seen this graph, but it looks like this. And let's just call this 10, 20, 30, 40. Right? So these are, we call these $10 million habits. And if you're using $10 million habits, this is where you land. 20 million, 30 million, $40 million habits, right? And what Gary Keller says, you gotta have a mindset, like, or if maybe you're here, or maybe you just started, you're here. But it's like you've got to have the mindset that you're going to create these habits and grow into it. And so he said, look, why aren't you out here? Why aren't you doing the $40 million habits so that this piece follows, right? Yes?
I don't know what the $40 million habits are yet. Right.
You have this book?
Yes.
Millionaire Real Estate Agent? But it's right in here.
Awesome.
Got it, right? Right in here. Ignite using those habits. No secret. It's all here. That's what those habits are about. And that's what the class is about. And the key is having the mindset around, oh, I'm going to do those things to really leverage my abilities. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about that. What's a $40 million habit? What do you think? What would you imagine would be a $40 million habit? Yes?
Lead generation.
Lead generation, probably numero uno, right? Probably like multiple hours of lead generation a day in some way, shape, or form. Yes, 100%. Gary Keller would say that's probably the only one, right? Like lead generate 3 or 4 hours a day and everything else will take care of itself. Everything. Everything else will take care of itself. If you're doing $30 million in business, I'll help you hire the staff. Trust me, that'll come. The staff, the help, the assistants, that'll all come. Great. What else? What else? $40 million habits. What other things could that entail?
Wake up every day with a goal.
Right. There we go. So being intentional around like what your goals look like. Yeah, you can write down. Yeah, what else? So like waking up, like having a schedule, right? That might be one.
Time blocking.
Time blocking, right? So that might look like time management, right?
Well, if you're a businesses have schedules and they stick to those, so if somebody's gonna walk into your business, there's an expectation, so you can do yourself, the same way.
Awesome, yeah. I want to get this into like what you're doing now so that you can take it out of the conceptual and bring it back and like, oh, what could I do today? What could I change now to think or talk or do differently? And that's right. Businesses have a schedule. If you had a flower shop, and I think Steve was talking about, if you have a flower shop, let's just say, do you just kind of come in wherever you want? No, right? You have a schedule. You're open from 9 to 5, and you probably have to know your inventory, right? Like, because you need to know if you need to order more roses or whatever, and you need to have that figured out. And you probably also need to know your numbers. Know your numbers. Anyone here watch Shark Tank? Anyone here watch Shark Tank? Yeah. I can't believe not more people watch Shark Tank. Anyway, I love that show. So one of the things is people come in, what's the first thing they ask? One of the very first things.
What's your valuation, what are your sales?
Right, what are your sales and?
The value, and profits and valuation.
Right, so they'll say, what are your sales? And they'll say X amount of dollars, and they'll say, what does it cost you? And they'll say, Y, and then figure out the profit, right? And if you don't know that, like literally it's out of the box every time, it's the same questions. If you don't know that, you don't know your numbers, what do? They shark you on out of there, right? Why is it in real estate you feel like you don't have to know your numbers? By the way, I'm not picking on you as people, as necessarily the specific folks in this room, but I'd share with you, my guesstimate is there's very few agents in here, in the entire office, in the entire industry, who I can go to and say, what's your volume? How many units have you done? Right? And where's your profit margin? I'm in a mastermind group with some very advanced real estate people. One guy named Jeff Cohn, who's like, he's an agent in, do you know him? Yeah, interesting guy. He's in like Omaha, right, or Nebraska. So I don't know, he makes several $1 million a year. I mean, he's amazing. And I overheard a conversation with him, and man, he knew how many units, how much he sold, what percentage, how much marketing he did. He knew how many times when a lead called in, how many times that they would reach out to touch them, and then what the conversion ratio was on each call, right? I mean, he knew those numbers backwards and forwards. Just a guy making a couple $1 million a year, right? I mean, just like unbelievable. He knew what was going on. Most real estate agents, they get a commission, put the money in their bank account, and then they just keep looking at their bank account going, I got more money. Until it runs out, and then like, I need to do another deal. Right? Okay, right? They're not paying attention to, and then I'd say, well, what about a budget? Well, I don't have a budget, I don't have any money, right? There's no cognition around like, oh, I'm building a business here. So again, that's a mindset piece, right? That's a mindset piece. So knowing your numbers on that, super important. Okay. So, any other habits before we move on? What's another one more habit like that you could implement today? Yeah, Clint. Blogging.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a marketing activity.
Yeah.
That may or may not be a $40 million activity. What might be another one where like you think the highest producing agent you can think of anywhere, any company? What is something they're doing? Kimberly, what's something that they might be doing?
I think something really important that a lot of people overlook is like daily affirmations. And your morning schedule. I know something that's big for us. We've got things to do. Saying what we're grateful for.
Love that. I'll tell you that one of the mindsets of high achievers is that they have a ritual in the morning. They have some level of, I'll call it meditation. It might actually be meditation. It might be a gratitude exercise. It might be reading something and generating some thoughts or whatever. Like all the high achievers, studies on them. They have some sort of a set routine that that they do usually first thing in the morning, and it will revolve around, mindset, meditation, calming, mindfulness, gratitude, because you cannot have anger and gratitude cannot exist at the same time in your brain. And neither can fear and gratitude cannot either. So getting into an exercise of gratitude sort of like wipes the other stuff away. Another important mindset piece. There's a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. There's one for The Miracle Morning for real estate professionals. I recommend it to everyone. And it is a very simple book, but it's got a suggestion for a morning ritual in it. It's a bestseller. I happen to know the guy, and it's like a runaway bestseller. And it's just got a very simple morning ritual in it, and you can kind of pick and choose and use different things, and it's really, really great. So just something else to think about. Okay, awesome. So that's for the habits. So just consider those habits and think about what would the craziest real estate person, what's Barbara Corcoran doing, right? Like the $1 billion business. What would she be doing about this or right now? And it's like, would she be struggling over her next postcard? Probably not, right? Like she's probably thinking very strategically. Anything on that before I move on? Thinking?
I was actually going to add, as far as $1 million habits, always watching your expenses.
Absolutely.
This feels like it trumps all of them. Such a foundation.
Yeah, it goes into knowing your numbers. Absolutely, knowing your numbers and watching your expenses. Great. Okay, let's move on to, I want to talk about thinking about possibility, right? So we just want to jump into the notion. I'm going over some bullet points here that are some of the foundational points. So I'm going to give you a reference point on page 71 inside the MREA book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. There's a little chart like this. I didn't print it out for you. I don't want to dwell too much on it. But there's a little chart right here, and it's got some of the points that I'm talking about right now. But it's the way a millionaire real estate agent thinks. So Gary Keller went around and interviewed the top 100. At the time he wrote this, he interviewed the top 100 agents in the country. That was whether they were with Keller Williams or not. That was not relevant. And he went around and he asked them questions and graphed and charted and looked at the way that these agents conducted themselves. What I like about it is not the way he thought they should conduct themselves or the way that he would coach someone to conduct themselves. He dissected what was actually working, and he came up with these models, right, which is super valuable. And you can borrow these and take these, and you can implement them in your own life so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the two first ones are the 9 ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks. First one is think powered by a big why. And the next one is think big goals and big models. And these are the foundation, right? So we talked about that up front. The next one's think possibilities, right? And I'm going to run through these fairly quickly. But think possibilities. Do you think nothing's possible? Something is possible. Or anything is possible. So let me ask a quick question. When you're presented with a challenge, this is interaction time, by the way. When you're presented with a challenge, do you think about the ways you could succeed or the ways you could fail? Who thinks about the ways they could succeed? Who thinks about the way they could fail? I'll admit, I'm probably more personally, by the way, this is a great training for me too, right? Like I'm not saying like I've got this locked down at all. The reason I do these classes is also to remind myself about these foundational pieces. But my brain immediately goes to what hurdle will I hit? What will be the problem or the challenge? What could go wrong? Okay? Now, the problem with that, it isn't that it's analytical. You can find each problem and then address each problem, and that's a lot of how I operate. But it robs me of looking at the future goal and just taking action towards it, right? So I want to encourage you, part of this whole mindset piece is, and one of the next ones coming up will be about, moving forward in spite of, failing, right? So it's just a constant movement forward. So when you're presented with a challenge, just take a look at the way that you think of it, like just internally, right? I'm not telling you to do it right now, or I'm not going to ask you, but think about the way that you look at that. Do you look at the opportunity, or do you look at the problem? We are coming up with this Gary Keller tells us, and I agree with him, that there is a market shift. What do you think about that? Yeah, probably some kind of market shift. And so what does that bring up for you?
Beer.
Beer? Which I agree with. Is that what you said?
I think that's fear.
Some fear.
Fear, okay, right, fear. Clint?
When I tell people, just strategy.
So like coming up with some strategies. Mike?
I personally, as we came out of this depression that we were in, and then the market went nuts with prices. Now I just think it's a normal market, and that's the business model that I walked into. And to me, it's familiar. And I think that buyers they're a little on edge because of the crazy man and interest rates. Like I was at a bar last night, and the guy was like, "I'm worried about Trump." I'm like, don't be worried about Trump. That's an external factor that you can't really control. If you need shelter, you're going to buy shelter because it's convenient to where you gotta go. You need it, and it's like you need shelter, food, and water.
Right, we're in a great business, guys.
So
we're in a great
don't
business.
be fearful of this shift. The shift is really like prices are going to drop. Your seller's going to be like, oh, why isn't my house worth as much money as it was last year? Who cares? It's the same thing.
Gotcha. Great. What else? Shift.
I'm a big believer in doing the basics, right? So as things change, if you continue to do the basics, you're going to be able to survive during that change.
Very good. Fundamental models. You just got to stick with the fundamentals. Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to it as well, because I think some people that have been buyers that are saying, hey, I'm just not even looking anymore because it's too competitive, it's too expensive. When the shift happens, I think some of those buyers are going to start saying, hey, now is a good time for me.
Gotcha.
And so I think that'll be one way to positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that too. I've been telling people that come into my open houses that if people need to buy, they buy. If they need to sell, they sell regardless, because no one can control what the market does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Pinky, what do you think of when I can talk about the market shift?
I get very excited because I've been fortunate enough to attend a lot of the, I watch the videos online, and I've been to family reunion and mega camp. So I hear shift and I hear opportunity, because the culture that we're in this office and at large with Keller Williams is always training and encouraging us to get ready for living into the next 3 months. So if we're looking at a shift here in LA, we're sort of insulated, and then there's hyper-local and then hyper-local depending on neighborhoods. There are so many opportunities to get into dialogue with the people that you know already. Call your past clients and say, guess what I heard? We don't really have the answers, but it's very exciting, and again, it's an opportunity to make your touches to everyone. Even if you get one person that comes into your open house, it's an opportunity to go, there's a shift coming, and just see what that opens up for everyone. We're not trying to say we have the crystal ball, but we're certainly in a position to talk about things that could be impacted. So I love when there's something's gonna happen. I get really excited.
Right. Well, and that's kind of one of the ones which I think some of you alluded to, which was a shift can equal opportunity. So remember, a market shift doesn't determine your success or failure. It just determines the strategy you take to continue your business. And I want to encourage you to keep that in mind as part of your mindset. The shift does not determine your failure or success. It just determines the strategy you use to conduct your business. Now, when the market shifted the last time around, I look back now and think, I could have delved into short sales. I mean, there's a ton of opportunity. There's a lot of agents whose business grew wildly, flourished, because they were able to shift with the market and change, and they learned how to embrace that market and take those opportunities, and got investors to purchase homes for investment, and now those people are doing great, right? And they understood short sales, and they got to work with a short sale negotiator, and they got to work with these various different, right? They really embraced the shift, changed it, and changed their marketing, right? Instead of just being in this, like, I don't know what to do. Which I took it, I was in a position where I was able to take a year off, right? And I didn't know what to do. Before I finally got back into the business, because people wanted to buy and sell homes. So, that was a whole year of me doing nothing, right? Or doing very little. So you don't have to do that. And some of my mentors and the people that I admire and respect, the market shifted and they kicked it into high gear and built little empires. Yes?
The last crash, a lot of it was triggered by the adjustable rate mortgages and people short selling and defaulting. What are the things going to be that we need to learn about for this shift?
Oh boy, if I knew that, sitting on an island in Bali, because my book sales would be so high. We don't know the answer to that. Again, Keller Williams thinks it will be something around an issue with affordability. However, we are now in a more global economy than we've ever been at any point in time. So there is a question of, well, could something happen in a foreign market that would adversely impact us? So we don't really know the answer. I will tell you though, the markets always shift. And I will also say, people always say this time it's different, it won't shift. And this time around, what I hear I don't battle with other agents, but I hear, in my conversations with other agents, and I kind of believe this to some extent. Well, in Los Angeles, our inventory is so restricted, right? We have such little bit of inventory just out there and available that it's going to theoretically soften any impact we might have. I don't know if that's true or not. I usually, I didn't understand mortgage-backed securities, I guess, nor did 99.9999% of the rest of the planet. And I didn't know they were a bad thing. And then all of a sudden, one day, it was in the newspaper, and it was like, guess what, guys? Right? So I think it's totally possible that something else like that could occur. That's just something that isn't even on our radars right now. Don't know what it's going to be, don't know how it's going to be, but the market will shift. But I think what I look at it now is I absolutely look at it as opportunity. Absolutely look at it as opportunity.
The Ignite classes that we've taken have really been great, but they've kind of been, hey, how to deal with a hot market with multiple offers and things like that. As this shifts, is there a chance we could get some Ignite classes that deal with maybe how to prepare for the...
Absolutely. In fact, there's another book called Shift that was written last shift. And I encourage you to order it. I don't have any. I encourage you to order it, and it talks about here's what you do in a shifting market. Okay, right? Yeah. So the conversation changes a little bit from to how do you manage? It really, what it comes back to is managing the expectations of the buyers and the sellers. That's all it is. It's all manage expectations. A mindset of managing expectations.
Short sales, how to work with short sales.
Say again, please, Steve.
I think you might want to start thinking about, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's possible. It's short sales. How do I work with short sales? How do I find short sales? Might start talking to bankers,
Sure.
Big companies, Wells Fargo, other people, foreclosures. How do I get into that business?
Right.
Because we've had several people here, when I was here at KWLF at the time, this office did extremely well, believe it or not, during the downfall, because we had agents that switched immediately. It was amazing how they became short sale specialists, they became foreclosure specialists, and do not be afraid to go outside of the area. We had another success. We had success because people were willing to go besides Silver Lake and Echo Park.
Right.
They were willing to expand and go where the business was.
Sure.
And it was in the valley, and it was in,
Right, everywhere around, we're super central to where a lot of.
yeah. So it's what you need to do. It's one of the things you should be looking at.
So yeah, expanding your horizons, yes.
One of the things I've noticed through quite a few shifts is that,
How's that possible?
sort of what Pinky was saying, is people need you more than ever when there's a shift, your clients, because they get to the point where if they're in a long, productive period and their houses are going up in value and all this, they start thinking they may not need us as much as they do. And then when there's a shift, they start to come back and say, well, what do you think? How can you help me? So that to me is an opportunity that instead of, you're not playing it by, you're not an automatic pilot anymore. I mean, you're really looking at each client as what can I do? So that plays into what you were saying, is listen more. And also, we have to think about what are some solutions for these people and
Right.
and help them. Even though we're not going to make a decision for them, we have to be more of a counselor and help them get through this period.
Fantastic.
Move into the period and get through it. So
Yes.
it is a big opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. So again, there's another mindset piece. Look at this as an opportunity. Now I will share one piece before we move on. And actually it kind of goes into my next piece, which is think about action, right? So all of these pieces that I've been talking about have been think possibilities, right? So it's think powered by a big why, think big goals and big models, think possibilities, and that next piece is think action, okay? And that plays right into what we were talking about. So think possibilities, think actions. So the action piece would be, you need to get into action now. Because the time when the market shifts and then you start calling everyone, it's too late. You need to start being in communication with people now so that you're that trusted voice of real estate when the market shifts, right? So that they're not just getting a phone call like, market shifted, are you panicking yet? Right? No, it's like, hey, you're talking to them, you're in there, you're in action, they're seeing you in action, and right? So then your opportunity will increase with them because you'll be that person that's stuck around in real estate. You had a question?
Well, obviously I'm going to read your book Shift, but right now if I call them about a shifting market, I don't know what to say.
No, I'm not saying call them about a shifting market. Great point. I'm not saying call people about a shifting market. What am I saying?
Call people.
Call people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying call people and instill panic. Although I really enjoy doing that to people. Okay, so I'm saying get in touch with people now. I'm in real estate, there's a lot of activity. Do you know anyone I can help? How can I help you? It might be a refi, it might be landscaping, it might be a plumber, it might be a handyman. Please call me. I'm in the #1 office on the east side of Los Angeles. We have a ton going on. Do you know anyone who might want to invest? Do you know anyone who needs a good deal? We have a lot of properties coming off market. I don't know if you guys have seen our email blast, but it's got a list of pocket listings that are not on the market. It must have 20 houses on it right now. Right? So it's like, you need to vend opportunity. But my point is, start now, don't wait until the market shifts. So it's a mindset of acting now, which brings us into think action, right? Which is the next set. And I just want to read this quote here from the book. It says, the problem for most is that they assemble everything they need to pursue success, and then, instead of actually pursuing it, they leave the raft of their salvation on the shore and decide to think about it some more. They hide behind continual inaction while calling it something else altogether. Inaction in the form of additional research, planning, preparation, or more plainly, procrastination. When you are ready, anything short of action is just plain inappropriate, and no action leads nowhere. So the next mindset piece is you got to get into action, do something. And so you brought up a great point, which is why I don't know what to do. And like, yes, actually all of it's in the book. Oh, and by the way, anything you do is great. Any action you take is great. I worked with people as a team leader now for 6.5 years, and I cannot think of one person who I worked with who got into the activities that we talked about and didn't generate business. Not one. I remember one that was a gal who was door knocking, and had been door knocking for quite a while, and she wasn't getting any business. She had a little dog that was, like, she walked around with a little dog, and everyone in the neighborhood knew her. She's parked right, I'm lead generating, I'm door knocking, and I'm not getting any business. And she was indeed door knocking, and everyone knew her, and she was getting no business. And so I said, well, tell me, what does your script look like? So when she went to people's doors, what was she talking about? Her dog. Her dog. And their dog. Amazing, when I worked with her to change her script, she immediately had business. I'm not joking. In Santa Barbara, like she was clipping off a deal every other month. I mean, it was really amazing. Because she just needed to shift her mindset and all, she thought she was talking. So, like, are you talking to people about their dogs, or are you talking about real estate?
Real estate.
Well, yeah, I would hope, right? But if you're just, I encourage people to start by just reconnect with your friends and your sphere of influence and get into some dialogue and conversation. And then the next step would be, look, they're going to ask you, you're going to ask them, how are you doing? John, how's it going? How's the market? Whatever. They're going to say, John, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to come back to you, how are you? How's work? What's going on? And they're going to talk about the real estate market. Is it hard to get into a conversation about real estate in Los Angeles? No, I have to fend people off. Right? I started telling people I was a florist. I did. So, yes, Clint.
I just had one question, like a rule of thumb that I heard some time ago, that if you do something for 6 months and if it doesn't produce any result, then you quit doing it. Do you agree with that?
Well, here's what I agree with is, what I love about that is, and the top agents I've worked with and that I know and that I've worked with in Beverly Hills are incredibly nimble. I have a problem with where I'm very myopic. Like I try something and I'm like, try something. And I think many people are myopic, try something, and they're not looking around, right? And the top agents have an ability to I'm going to try this software, I'm going to try this script, I'm going to try this. And then the thing is, they're all good at measuring the results. And so they're checking the return on investment. So again, another mindset piece, guys, don't just do the same thing with no results and be upset about the no results. So if you're measuring what you do, and this takes some discipline, right? Some focus of measuring your results. So in one example, if you're spending a bunch of money on some sort of, I'll say internet advertising, right? And it's not giving you results, and it's no ROI, then cut it off, right? By the way, the ROI on internet advertising right now is negative 23.2%. Okay? Because it's now saturated, just saturated. Some people have it very effective because they got in 10 years ago and they have more online real estate and all kinds of stuff. But for the most part, it's like a negative 23%. So that's not working. So I see people cutting that out. But they might try a different software, and they might try this other lead generation piece, and they might try a different postcard, and they might try the postcards that go out, and if they wanted their home evaluation, they'll punch in a code, right? They keep trying different things to see what hits, right? Now, you do have to give it some time, right? Something's not going to work overnight. But that is a mindset around, have you reevaluated everything you're doing? So now what I would say is, if someone came to me, like this gal that I mentioned to you, and said, well, I'm door knocking and nothing's happening, don't quit door knocking. Right? We know that works. Like I know that works, and the door knocking and the calling and the appointments and the meeting with people and the more conversations you have with people is going to be directly correlated to your success in real estate, period. Period. Answer to everything, the answer to all the problems, I should just put this on my wall now. The answer to all of your problems is more lead generation. Right? More lead generation. Problem with a shift? What do I do in a shift?
Lead generate.
More lead generation, right? I don't have a budget for something. What do I do?
Lead generate.
Lead generate, right? I want to hire an assistant. Well, what do you need to do?
Lead generate.
Okay, thank you. I'm counting. So, right? So that's the answer to those things. But the mindset, again, I like the mindset that you're evaluating what you do. So just be in action. And again, the big models that we talked about earlier are going to help you be in action. Have a checklist, have a schedule. If you don't, what you're gonna do, well, let me ask you, if you don't have a schedule and you don't have a plan, and you're not working this stuff, and you get up in your day, tell me, and maybe this is happening for some of you, maybe it's happening for none of you, but let's just pretend you knew someone who didn't have a schedule and didn't have a system and wasn't working off of models, and you wake up in your day and you don't want to do it, what happens? Waste time, you won't do it. Right? If you don't feel like doing it, you're not going to do it. Right? If you have systems and models and a framework, you will do those things. Right? It's like when you go to a doctor's office. They don't like do something different every time you go to a doctor's office, guys. They don't do something different. You walk in, you sign in at the front desk and write your name on a clipboard. They take your information. They may ask you for if you've updated your insurance information. You go sit and read an old magazine or something totally uninteresting. A gal comes and opens the door, or a nurse, someone comes and opens the door and calls your name. You walk in, they weigh you. They go in, they take your temperature, and they take your blood pressure, and they write it down. And then they ask you, what are you in here today for? And then they write that down, and they grade. The doctor will be with you in a few minutes, and they walk outside, and they put the clipboard in the little shelf outside the door, and they shut the door, and you sit there reading old magazines until the doctor comes in again. Right? No chance for screw-ups. That's how it is. So give yourself that framework. But see, your brain is going to trick you into thinking that that's a drag. Because you have to follow a model, right? And that's why you became a real estate agent, so you could be your own boss. The good news about being in real estate is you're your own boss. The bad news about being in real estate is you're your own boss. So if you give yourself, the key is if you give yourself the gift of these models and the framework, right? Again, it's a mindset. Give yourself the gift, like having that process of what you're doing each day. You will then defeat the times when you don't want to do stuff. You'll defeat it. You may wake up and not want to do it, but you'll have your things lined out for the day. I don't know about you guys, but if I come in for the day and I don't have my to-do list, I'm like, I'm going to answer emails. Oh, that's great. Right? Who here is just living in their inbox? Inbox living. Liars, 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 liars. Yeah, right? Here's why I know, because everyone's walking around the office like, how's it going? How's it going? Hey, how's it going? Right? Oh yeah, that's right. Right, my email. Right? So you think that you organize your day, I'm going to organize my day by answering emails because it feels productive.
It's not.
It's not, is it?
Then why are you doing that?
I'm checking the house.
Yeah. Right, but it's not, right? So like, that's another piece is that you're being in total reaction if you're looking at your email box. And by the guilty here, right? So because I have fires going on all the time, that's my excuse. But I'll time block and I just won't look at my emails until a few hours later, right? And the earth is still standing, people still live, sirens aren't racing around. But real estate agents feel like if they don't respond to every single email every single second, they're going to lose business. And I've had these debates with agents for a long time. But don't debate with me. Talk to Gary Keller. He's just about a billionaire. I think he's got a pretty good grip on how this works. I really do. And so if you talk to the most successful high achievers, they're going to tell you, do not live out of your email inbox. Like, do the most important things in your day and check email at whatever time. Yes?
Yeah. In the emails, a lot of times, at least for me, I get a lot of junk trying to sell me something from lenders, from Connect, from things like that, what's going on at the Beverly Hills, Greater LA board.
Great. What's your question?
Yeah. Well, my question is just focus only on the buyers and the sellers of emailing you. Is that true?
Well, let me say this. Don't focus on your email until after lunch, and you'll be fine. Do whatever you want after lunch. In the morning, lead generate, do business, work with people, talk with people, but focus on the email later in the day. It'll all still be there. All right? So, that's all think action.
Parker, if I could just
Please,
share a
jump in.
story, because think action can be very loaded, because you're gonna inevitably be the one who defines what your action is gonna be. And you have to be very specific and purposeful about it. You know, I used to door knock all the time, Hills of Echo Park, up high where it's beautiful and pleasant and private. And I made a wonderful friend, and I knew she was gonna sell soon. And she showed me her house. We were in constant contact, I would check on her and visit. And I had never actually asked her, when you are ready to sell, will you give me an opportunity to show you how I would do things? I wasn't seasoned enough or brave enough or whatever. There were so many reasons. And come the day, I was coming for tea, and there was a sign in the yard. Right? So think action, but also think it specifically, because I thought, I mean that feeling, you all know, that feeling of like, oh no, I've been doing this all wrong. Of course I was happy to have made her acquaintance, but that just, let's face it, that sucked when I saw the sign. And it sold quickly and healthily, and I was happy for it. And then of course I stayed in touch with her later. She's in a senior home now, but you know, you want it to be authentic, but you have to think with intention and purposeful. And if it feels gross, because you feel like you're selling and I don't want to ask, that seems weird, go back to the big why. Because that's where you'll find the authenticity in your action.
And just a quick thank you for that point. And just a quick add-on to that. So I was a team leader in Santa Barbara. It's a very small community. And inevitably the agents would come in there, and I would say things like, oh, are you talking to people? And they'd say, I don't want to come off salesy. I said, well, I have bad news for you. You're in sales. Okay? So you have got to make the ask. Do you get upset, and I'll take off from your example, when the waitress or waiter comes to you when you're done with your meal and says, would you like a coffee?
No.
Right. Okay. So when you ask someone if they need assistance or help in real estate, why is that something to be upset or get angry or feel salesy about, right? You're just offering service. Come from service. Come from how can I add value to those people? And that's, well, people will trade their money for value, right? So that's where you want to come into it. But you do need to be intentional, and you do need to take action and be asking these questions, because if you don't ask, you'll come into my office, I guarantee it. I'm like, oh, with the story that Pinky just had. Oh, I was working with this person, and then they went with someone else. Oh, did you ask them for the business? Did you take paperwork to them? Did you, when you opened this conversation, did you ask them if they're going to use you or their brother or their cousin, right? We probably heard a billion, million, trillion stories. Like, I worked with this person forever, and then they used their cousin, or whatever, or their neighbor, or someone else. It's like, well, you gotta nail it down. Okay? So that's another mindset piece. What are you gonna do? What is going to be you gotta make sure if you have a strong value proposition, you believe in your value proposition, you're gonna provide that to other people. So that's a really important piece. All right. The next one is, so think action. So we've had big why, big goals, models. Think possibilities. Keep in possibility, opportunity. Think action. So get into action, not busyness, right? But the action, the dollar productive activities, the things that are going to earn you money. The fifth one is think progress, right? Tell me about progress. What is progress? What's progress in real estate?
When your business is growing.
When your business is growing?
Creating more leads.
Creating more leads?
Having appointments.
Having appointments? Closing? Awesome. Yes, all of those things are progress. I'll share with you that one of the definitions of progress is really one of like a scientific definition of progress is measures both successes and failures. Those are both providing feedback, right? In science, they do trials and experience. Some of them fail, but they move forward because they're finding, oh, this worked, this didn't work. This worked, this didn't work, so we're going to try this, right? And they're always moving forward. And that's something that we rob ourselves of, is the ability to try something that may not work. And so we don't try anything at all. And that becomes the inherent failure, is that we're so afraid to fail by trying something that we don't try and therefore fail anyway. So, that progress is moving forward and trying things and trying things and trying things. And an experiment they talk about in the MREA book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, is an experiment that a professor did at a school. And what he did was he said he had a pottery class. And he broke it into 2 groups. And he gave one group, he said, I want you to make this particular pot, right? Or make the best pot you can. I can't remember what it was. And I said, I want you to just throw as many of these things as you can. I want you to keep making them until you get the best one you can get. To that group. And then to this group, he said, I want you to make the perfect pot, but I want you guys to design it and draw it and think about it and really engineer it and then make it once. Who got the best result?
People that got to the most.
Here or here? Who thinks that these people got the best result?
No.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
For which one?
Who thinks that these people got the best result? Right. Surprisingly, or not, the people, that's right, the people who did throwing pottery is like great pottery. The people who just did it again and again and again and again and again and again and again blew the people out of the water who thought about it and then they couldn't make a pot. They couldn't do it. They couldn't get it together to make the pot. People who did it again and again and again and again and again failed. Right, like weird, funny. You guys have seen they weren't funny pots, but they eventually got to make this fantastic thing, which was practice.
Isn't that the fly?
Isn't that the fly? No, they were practicing and getting better and trying again, not afraid to fail and moving forward and forward and forward. And they were able actually, great point, they were able to actually try different methodologies of what worked and what didn't work and keep trying and moving until they came up with a perfect one. Whereas the people who thought about it and planned and engineered and looked at it, when they got to the practical application of actually doing it, they just didn't come forward, didn't move. They hadn't done it. Okay? So, when you're thinking about progress, that includes the things that you try that work and the things that you try that don't work. Okay? So quality in this case is in the quantity, right? You're going to have to knock on a lot of doors. I'm going to knock on a lot of heads, right? Is what they call it. Like, talk to a lot of people on the phone. Talk to a lot of. I got a phone call from an agent the other day, and this individual said to me, Parker, I don't think this door knocking thing's working. I went out yesterday and everyone said no. One day, like 2 hours, one day. No, it takes time. It takes going again and again and over time, and therein lies the magic, right? So it's that mindset of that. You've got to think about progress, but it comes from doing it again and again, right? It's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, right? To become an expert, like to become like an expert at something, right? Mastery is 10,000 hours of what you name it, like, right, playing football or the violin or whatever. They did the math and it took about 10,000 hours. Hard to get to 10,000 hours in one day, right? But so it takes a lot of time. But you have to have that mindset that the mastery comes from the repetition again and again. Has anyone here ever done any martial arts? Right? A couple people, right? So when you do martial arts, what are you doing every time?
It's hours of wax on, wax off. Hours.
There's some millennials in here who might not know what that means.
I heard one tiny chuckle. It's a lot of, well, if you're a musician of any kind, which I also have, it's hours and hours of what feels like mundane drills. And drills, and drills. And when do I get to perform? Can I use the pedal yet? When do I get to be like awesome? It's drills and drills and drills, and then suddenly something happens and you are starting to soar. But it's that time on the task. Results over time.
Right. So we're in this society now where it's like instant gratification. You got your phone, you get everything you want, you can order food, you can get Costco, everything's right now. But with the skills, the mindset has to be I'm looking for mastery over time. It's called time on task over time, like a mathematical formula. It's like, the more you do these things, the more you lead generate, the more conversations you have, the more you practice at it, that stuff will add up and get better and better and better. So now I have, some of the really seasoned agents in this office, they can get on the phone and be very, very impactful very, very quickly, right? Like they get on, their conversations are way more impactful than my conversations are.
We were on a broker's caravan yesterday. We went to an agent's caravan who's a wildly successful, wonderful person, and a client walked in and he said to her, "You're still looking?" I don't know if anyone in here would ever say that to a buyer, but he had established himself so well in his market and in what he does that he was able to just be that straight with her. And I don't know, I found it really sort of powerful that he could be that honest and still feel like that it was coming from a place of service. I mean, that's how it occurred to me.
So again, it's that practice piece. So you've got to be willing to have a practice in this area. And it reminds me, when people begin in any job, like historically, when people start a job right out of college, and I'm including myself in this, like it's hard to come from a place of saying, you know what, I'm going to be subservient. I'm going to come from a place where I realize the person above me knows more, right? And that can be a challenge for all ages, right? But particularly, people just starting out in the workforce. It's like, what does this guy think they're talking about? That's not the way it works, but they've been in the business a long time. And that knowledge and that wisdom comes from years and years of experience. So when you talk to, the people with Pinky or Steve Garza or myself, when you spend 5 minutes with me and ask me a real estate question, you're not getting 5 minutes. You're getting 20 years. I'm not just making a flippant yes, no answer. I'm saying it because I've had that situation again and again and again and again and again, and this is what has worked in the past. Right? Is it always perfect? Probably not, but probably pretty darn good. And the same with the whole staff, right? So keep that in mind. Again, that's another mindset piece. And you can ask why. Why is a fine question to ask. But it's that mindset piece of, there's people who've done this before, why am I going to reinvent the wheel? And have the mindset around it. There's some really fantastic resources that you can take a chance with. Do you have anything you want to add to that? No. Okay, awesome. We've got two more, and I'm going to go fairly quickly. One is thinking, right, so the mindset, right, thinking competitively and strategically. This is a really key piece. Think competitively and strategically. So, let me read this little quote right here. The problem is that most real estate agents can't distinguish between the rules, which is how you play, and the strategies, which is how you win. In real estate, our rules have nothing to do with making money. They are about conduct, ethics, and protocol. You can be a master in all of those things and still be a pauper, still make no money. I'm not insinuating that you need to break the rules to succeed, but I'll say that rules are about proper requisites and restraints, and you should play by them. However, strategies are often found in playing. How do you utilize the rules? Where are you playing within the rules to create a win for yourself? So to simplify that, there's a game called checkers. Well, there's a game called tic-tac-toe. I don't know, a strategy you can have tic-tac-toe. If I go first, I'm going to win. So checker, right? There's a game called checkers. You can learn how to play it, or chess. You can learn how to play it. That's an extreme example. But there are very sophisticated strategies about how to win. Okay? So it's not just knowing the rules, but it's knowing how to utilize them. So if several of you or many of you are newer to the business, even the seasoned folks, once you knock out those rules and really understand the rules and the paperwork and the things that you have to do, that's what enables you to get into the strategy of how to win. And that part of that mindset really is setting expectations of clients, but it's working with people that it might, I hear a lot of times people say, so-and-so's doing something in a transaction, that's not fair. I say, well, is it within the rules and the guidelines? Well, yes, it's within the rules and the guidelines, but I think they should be doing this or that. It's like, well, did it move the ball forward? Is the transaction getting done? I'm not saying that that thing is unethical, not at all. But it's like, oh, they just took a different route. They're getting there through this way and that way. So there's strategies, and that's something that we want you to take a lot of the classes for. It's not just the rules of playing the game, which you need to understand right away, right, as soon as possible, the rules of the game and the contracts, but it's also the strategies on how to win with people, how to win with buyers, how to win with sellers, how to win especially with other real estate agents. Because when you get into that transaction, as I said in the team meeting on Monday, or earlier this week, I said, you're going to deal with your client once, maybe twice, but you're going to deal with the real estate agents out there, for the next 10 years. It's going to be the same people again and again and again and again and again and again. So you need to be awesome to those people, right? You treat people with respect and be as nice as you can, even when they're not being super great to you, right? So that's a very, very key mindset piece. So does anyone have any questions about strategy? Any pieces on strategy you want to throw in there?
I think it's great to really base thinking competitively and strategically on really conduct. I just renewed my license for the third time, I think, and one of the key pieces it kept reiterating was the golden rule. And I was like, what's this doing here? What does this have to do with my license? It's absolutely true in all things. Golden rule. Do unto others.
Yeah.
So you would have them do unto you.
All right. Any questions about that? Great. The last one I want to talk about is wrapping up with thinking without fear. There's actually a couple more, but I'm just going to wrap up with thinking without fear. And I'm wrapping up with this because I actually took some notes from a 2010 Gary Keller speech that I attended at a family reunion, and it was on failing forward. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about some scenarios as you are talking about, and I'm talking about thinking without fear, right? Thinking just moving forward. And most people, when they think about that, they think about getting scared of failing. So I'm going to go through a few of these things. A few examples. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination. He had a company called Laughgrams that failed, and he started a cartoon which was then basically taken by Universal at the time, and they hired all his animators away, and he had to close the company. He lost a distribution deal in 1921, and it forced him to dissolve his company, and at one point could not pay his rent and was surviving by eating dog food. He created he did so many different things. He created Mickey Mouse in 1927 and was told the idea would never work. A giant mouse on the screen would terrify women. Marilyn Monroe was told she was not good looking enough and could not act. Macy's, the gentleman who started Macy's, he had several runs at the department store business. He was one of the originators of the department store, and people said it would never work, and it became one of the largest, most successful department stores ever. He said that the world will organize around you to fail in hopes you will understand that it is what you need to understand to succeed. Lucille Ball received a letter from a drama teacher saying you are too shy to put your best foot forward and should not be on the screen. I don't know if any of you are rock fans out there. There's a guitarist named Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath. He lost 2 fingers in an accident as a young man, and he basically taught himself how to play a guitar in a way that no one had ever thought about before. Now he's largely considered one of the fathers of hard rock. J.K. Rowling's, that little book that she wrote, was rejected. She's the author of Harry Potter. She was rejected by 12 publishers initially. Harry Truman, right, had bad debt when the President of the United States had bad debt. Took him 13 years to pay it off. He paid all of it off and overcame that. Woolworth, right? I remember Woolworth department stores, which are no more. At the time that when he was young, he had a boss that said he lacked the sense to start a business. When he passed away, he was worth $6 million. And if you backdated that money, he would be a billionaire at his time. Einstein, his teachers thought he was slow, and he was denied entrance to a school in Zurich. Katie Couric was told by her boss, I never want to see you on TV again. Colonel Sanders, at 65 years old, was rejected. He had his fried chicken recipe he wanted. At 65 years old, he was living out of his car. He was rejected 1,009 times before someone said yes. That's a great idea. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team. He missed more shots than he made, and he won 6 NBA championships. You guys get the idea? Right? Like, these people move forward and move forward and move forward. And so I want to encourage you to do the same thing. So don't stop. Don't stop if you fail. Don't stop when you lose, because life was intended to keep moving. Don't stop until you die. Thank you very much. In theory, there's a pizza out here, so please enjoy.